I'm the Iron Fist. I wasted so much time on this. So I just binge watched season 1 of Iron Fist for 13 straight hours. It was okay. It was a neat tale about Danny Rand trying to return to his life and reclaim his name and all that it entails. As a whole, the show did a good enough job conveying who Iron Fist is, his general good intent, and what the character is capable of. Visually, I think they did really good. The combat sequences were believable to an extent. They often paired him or his allies against some interesting fighters. I particularly thought the cage fights were cool, and the Drunken Master scene was pretty fun. And as per usual against a martial arts protagonist, guns were pretty much a non-issue in fights. The aforementioned side bosses had some pretty rad looks, but I'm a bit bummed that they didn't use the Iron Fist costume. Instead, they just let him wear whatever. I guess it was a necessary attempt to ground the guy who got powers from a dragon in a cave. On the story side of things, I have some mixed thoughts. The characters I feel worked pretty well for how they were portrayed. I can see where people come from when they complain about most of them being unlikable or lacking in clear motivation, but that's kind of the point. Throughout the whole show, Denny makes a ton of dumb decisions. His first scene is attacking security guards to reach his former friends with no proof of identity and just freaking everybody out. And as it goes on, he proceeds to be manipulated by almost everybody and generally just acts super rashly in the face of every conflict. But it all makes sense considering he spent the past 15 years being raised by monks who taught him to suppress emotions and pretty much just follow strictly what they say, which was just beat up the hand. They sort of address the validity of his teachings, but they don't really go very in depth with it, especially when it turns out that Colleen was in the wrong. But whatever. Colleen was interesting as she probably had the best heart in the whole show, but she had been manipulated by the hand. It'd be a neat comparison to Danny had they not spelled it out, which the show had a tendency to do about a lot of things. And their romance was pretty cliche and nothing too spectacular. Claire once again served as connective tissue between the defenders along with all the references that come with it, but it kinda got hammy at times. The Meachums had their own issues that caused them to act irrationally, and while their actions were constantly confusing and frustrating, they were kind of the human bystanders in this whole thing, and they weren't really meant to be a lovable bunch. Although I really don't see why they would have ever sided with Zombie Dad. Literally everything he said and did was drenched in obvious bad guy tropes. Speaking of which, the antagonist for this show honestly felt super muddled throughout. First it paints Ward as the bad guy, but apparently he's just a damaged loser. Then Harold seemingly is the main bad, but he really just sits there doing almost nothing until the end. Madame Gao and the Hand return and serve as good foils, but that ultimately flounders as the Hand is replaced with a different Hand with Bakudo. And he turns out to be an almost non-threat as Danny fights him like once, he shoots Joy, and then promptly dies-ish from Colleen. I feel they tried to pull this cool, complex narrative where there were all these moving pieces and who's really in control, but really just kind of split the focus and hurt the story. By the end, most of the fights seemed just extraneous. I'm looking at you, Davos. It's like they felt they had to fill the time, like they had to perfectly fit the 13 50-minute episodes. In fact, a lot of the show was filling time. The beginning alone took forever to really get going. Just a lot of Danny failing a bunch of persuasion rolls. And I can't even remember how many times we got a flashback to the plane crash, with almost no extra information. While all of that did work to paint Danny as a hurt person and a fish out of water, it still felt really stretched out. Really, it felt like that a lot of these problems arose from the creators trying to emulate Daredevil Season 1. Ever since it initially raised the bar, all the Defenders have been following similar formulas and haven't quite reached the same acclaim. They are unique stories and they need a little bit more nuance than that. They shouldn't feel the need to make all these shows exactly 13 episodes. They really should let them each work for what they need. I feel a different approach should maybe be taken to troubled sibling corporate executives being manipulated by their zombie dad, who in turn is controlled by drug-smuggling ninjas. Really, the story was a tough adaptation to begin with. Overall, Iron Fist is a neat action show with some interesting ideas, really cool imagery, and persistent themes of trust and identity. Coincidentally though, its main flaws boil down to the show lacking any real identity beyond, okay, we can do Defenders now. Tell me what you thought of Iron Fist in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. I'm Flink Hollow and I hope you have a nice day.